right here. If I got his handle right? I was right. I knew it off the top of my head. And you know, I don't want to hear myself. And you know, if I know it off the top of my head, that it means a lot more than off other people's heads because I have what they call a great head of hair. Who they are exactly, you know, and you might even be one of them. But this they are referring to I, Ray Catolo, back with you again for another edition of Often Pacing Live. This time by myself, but not only by myself, I will be alone with another person, and then we'll be alone together. Don't you love paradoxes like that? It's what drives this life around, as if it drives in a circle. Now, of course, I'm also joined by this can of lemon pledge that's conveniently sitting next to my desk for some reason, but at this point two, I should probably stop talking or else I'm going to talk about the other things on my desk, including, for some reason, a little jar. It's not a jar. It's like a little tube of sunscreen. I have all these candles. I have a medal I won from the American Legion chapter in my area, and boy, did they not know who they were voting for. But that's all besides the point. It's time to bring on our guest for today's show, which covers the North America Cup from Mohawk Racetrack in Off and Pacing. We're going to watch it live. We're going to call it live. I'm going to be here to call it. And then before that, I'm going to be here to talk to my guest for this evening as I pull up his number on my cellular phone, open up the phone part of my phone, hit the dial, and then we hit the speaker as we get ready to bring on to the program any moment the man, the person,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jason Portuondo. Did I pronounce it right?
What's going on?
Did I want you to know? I want to make sure I got the name right. Portuondo, Porchitsky. I don't know.
Well, en español es Portuondo, but just Portuondo is good enough.
That was the most culturally. This is now the most culturally diverse broadcast. I don't know if you know that at this point. Bringing in the Spanish culture. I know Spanish. For years, Jason, have been asking, Where is the library? Nobody tells me. It's my go-to question.
That is too funny. I just keep it simple, though, and just say Portuondo.
And that's what I did, too, but I'm also not culturally cultured, for lack of a better term. So you're Spanish descent, then, I take it.
Yeah, well, both my parents are Jamaican, but yeah, my grandfather is Cubano, so that's the Portuondo side of things. So,
Okay.
Yeah, born in Havana, and my last name is like Smith in Havana, so yeah, it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's exactly what it translates to?
No, I'm just saying, like,
I gotta ask.
Whatever, you got it now? Okay, yeah. So, cause it's funny, because I went for vacation there, would have been, a few years ago now.
Mm.
And anyways, when I was there, I was talking with some of the locals. The guy brought me a phone book and showed me, and I couldn't believe it. Like, it's the only place I've been in the world where they say my name better than I do, and they spell it correctly.
Now, I was proud of myself, too, earlier, because I was scrolling through to make sure I knew your Twitter, and I knew how to spell your name.
Wow, that's impressive.
It provided me the little bit of validation I needed to make it through the rest of the day. Now, to make it through tomorrow, I don't know how I'm going to do it, Jason. I don't know. Maybe this will somehow reinvigorate me. But, first off, thank you for joining.
Hey, thanks for the invite.
Oh, I mean, you and I are you occasionally go back and forth. Whenever I see something I can make a joke of, that you do, I tweet it, then we have a fun time, a giggle and a gag, and then we go back to our separate ways. But now we're joined together, not only off Twitter, but we're joined together by our voices and having an actual conversation. Not only that, I got to learn you're Spanish. I did not know that. That's interesting. Not only that, Jamaican. When you said Jamaican, I was instantly thinking French background, because I think that's how it worked. But then again, that would also make so much sense, because Canada's like half French. And that half thinks that they're French and not Canadian. But politics aside. So you, Jason, if you did not know, are a handicapper and a public personality at Woodbine Racetrack as well as Mohawk, just the WEG circuit overall, but now going to be the broadcast man at
Mohawk at Woodbine Park. I forget the name they were calling it at this point. It's no, it's
You got it.
It's Woodbine at Mohawk Park.
Woodbine Mohawk Park. Yes, indeed.
Ah, that sounds like a Broadway musical.
Yep. You know what? I just trying to get to. I think the way they want to do it, two breeds, one brand is what they're going after. And, you know, I got mixed emotions about the move. I mean, obviously, the big positive is we're going to have one location. We're not moving around. I mean, the tough part about Mohawk, but it is getting better in terms of it's kind of isolated where it is. Campbellville isn't really, you know, a popular part of the world, right? I mean, it's more of a rural area, farms, whatever else. But, you know, it is building up. It is expanding. I mean, that's the thing we have with the airport oval. I mean, it's right smack dab. It's central. So, I mean, wherever you're coming from, it's in a good spot. You know, the drawback with Woodbine, obviously, is you're watching a race there. You got to look over the grass. You got to look over the tapeta. And then you get to the inside track, which is where the harness horses compete. So, not the greatest visually. So, there's good and bad with the move. But overall, I think the horsemen, for the most part, are happy because they got to ship in all the time, right?
Oh, yeah.
So, obviously, Mohawk, for many, is a lot closer. You know, you do have some guys that are out in the east, like a Carmossiello, you know, Stouffville way, and then you got Per Hendrickson, who's out towards Peterborough. So those guys, you know, like, Woodbine a lot better for obvious reasons, but you're never going to make everybody happy, right? That's just the way the world is.
I mean, I tried to, but then I had the exact opposite happen. They all just don't like me.
Well, you know what? That's okay. As long as they're talking about you, that's all that matters. You don't have to be liked. As long as you're being talked about, then you know you're in. So it's all good. And trust me, doing what I do for a living, I get ripped all the time. But you got to be like Teflon. Just let it slide off, move on.
You see, that's the thing is I'm almost envious of your position because of the amount of hate that you are able to get just for being a handicapper and having an opinion. Me, at this point, I just mask my opinion so much in stupidity that everyone just rubs it off.
Yeah, well, you know what? First of all, being a handicapper, you're going to be wrong more than you are right.
And that's right. You're right about that.
Right? It's just fact. So, you know, if you're trying to, you know, buck the trend, forget about it. It's not going to happen. The good thing about harness racing, because I've covered both thoroughbred and harness, the good thing about harness I find is these horses are in the same class basically weekly. So it's easier to follow treble trips. You know, it's fresh in your memory. You realize, okay, this is what happened last time, whatever else. Thoroughbreds race basically once a month, so it's a lot harder to follow those. Now, with harness racing, obviously, trip is paramount. I mean, you can have the best horse. If you don't get the trip, you're not going to win. And we've seen, you know, a lot of great horses go down in defeat because they didn't get the trip, they got locked in, whatever the case may be, parked, whatever, right? So there are so many elements that go into picking, you know, a winner when it comes to harness racing. You got to hope the horse is right. You got to hope you get the right trip. It's just like the stars have to be aligned. So it's that tough, and some nights it just falls in your lap, and other nights you just can't buy a winner. But that's the way the game goes.
And that's one thing that I know I've learned as a handicapper too over the years. It's that you can't really define yourself by how well you do because it's such a roller coaster, and you're always going to have you're going to have less peaks than you will dips anytime as a handicapper. But for you in particular, I remember you came on to the WEG circuit to do broadcasting. I from TSN, right? Because you were originally there for a bit before you came on to WEG, or were you at WEG the whole time?
So here's the story.
Okay.
So I'm taking you back now. I started with WEG, and then the shows back then that I was hosting were on Sportsnet.
Okay.
And the boss at the time, Scott Moore, happened to watch and offered me a job, and yeah, so I left Woodbine. Would have been 2002.
Oh my God!
I was at Sportsnet. Yeah. So me looking, but I'm a veteran. So yeah, so none of that Sportsnet for 10 years.
Okay.
And then actually, it wasn't 10 years. No, I take that back. It wasn't 10 years. It was 02 to 10, so 8 years. And then back on the WEG scene, but in between not being there and being there, I was always there because as anybody who's in the racing game will tell you, once it's in your blood, you never leave. So whether it be with thoroughbred or harness, people always consider me a thoroughbred guy, but I'm actually more of a harness guy because I started with the harness horses first at Greenwood. So that was my first step into harness racing because my uncle owned harness racing, harness racing horses. So him owning harness horses, and to me, I love both breeds. I mean, some people say to me, well, you got to pick one. You can't be a fan of both. I said, well, I'm a horse lover, so I don't care if they're pulling a bike or carrying a jockey, galloping, trotting, pacing, doesn't matter to me. It's all racing, and I love it. So yeah, so it's basically the way it shook down, and just between, doing TV and harness racing, horse racing, whatever have you, it's the perfect exact for me because, that's just what I do.
They usually say you're addicted whenever it gets in your bloodstream to for things other than horse racing, but I must digress from that. Because I remember, I asked because I remember before I saw you on WEG full time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this. Whenever it was North America Cup time, I would always see you working with TSN and covering for that, because you would always ride on the bike with the driver. And first off, when you would because if you were to do that, it always seemed like you kind of won the race too. He's like, I'm in the winning sulky,
Yeah, you know what? Well, first of all, I got to give Chad Rosema props for that, because he started that back in the day.
Oh, okay.
When he was working with WEG, and they had a TSN show, and he hopped on the bike to interview the winning driver. So it stuck from back then. So whether it have been Chad starting it, and then Renee Kieran, she continued it, and then when I got there, I said, well, I guess I better continue the pattern here. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's actually Chad Rosema is the trendsetter for that. But yeah, no, you're right. I mean, even though I wasn't working with Woodbine at the time, they still had me back and, part of their national broadcast, whether it be on Sportsnet, The Score, or even TSN. So, yeah, I've been away, but never fully away, as I said, right? You just sort of stray for a bit, and you always end up coming back home.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if you'd get this reference, but whenever Chad Rosema is brought up, I have to assert the fact how much he looks like comedian Mike Birbiglia. Now this goes against me and my preparation, because if I would have remembered you worked with Chad Rosema and the chance of him being brought up in conversation was high, I would have prepared a graphic so I could show it on the stream, and so people would go, yeah, he does kind of look like Mike Birbiglia, and then move on with whatever we were talking about. But if you look, I'm gonna tweet it out after the show, after this broadcast, and then you can go, he kind of does, and then move on with your life. That's all I ask.
Yeah, that sounds good, because Chad was actually recently at the Meadowlands for the Hambo this past weekend, mm-hmm. and he went up to go see Ken Workington. And Ken goes, you know what? You must be like my brother from another mother, because Ken Workington thinks that he and Chad look alike.
That's more far-fetched. That's so far-fetched.
Yeah, so I don't see that, but whatever. That's what Ken sees.
I actually walked by Chad Rosema, and I guess I'm not famous enough in the industry yet for him to see me and say hi. But I'm not trying to say it in a snarky way, But,
it's okay, don't worry, I know how you feel, but, I stand out, right? I mean, there aren't too many brothers doing harness racing, so if you see somebody, chances are it's me.
Well, that's also kind of interesting, too, because you bring that up, and that's true, and it's unfortunate how there's that lack of diversity in racing, because it's one of those sports, like no other sport, I guess, I mean, let's be honest, tennis, I think tennis has a specific demographic, but like racing is one that racing is one that appeals to any kind of class, any kind of kind of demographic altogether, and it's unfortunate that you have that lack of diversity. That I say again.
Yeah, you know what? It is what it is. I mean, I don't mind being Jackie Robinson of harness racing or thoroughbred racing. I mean, that's fine by me. But you know what? It's so funny though, because thoroughbred is more of a Caribbean thing for them anyways, whether you're from Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, they have that type of racing in the West Indies. But when you think of harness racing, yeah, it's more of a rural thing, more on the country, and I don't know, black people, I guess, don't roll in the country. I can name like maybe 2 or 3 black people that I'll see in the paddock on a given night, one being Chris Matthews, the trainer. Des Takur is also a trainer, and then there's another guy named Jeff that works with Casey Coleman. But it's funny because Ken Middleton does a segment on Mondays on the pregame show, and it's called Who Am I? So they'll show a baby picture of somebody. You got to try and figure out who it is. So he asked me for a picture, and I said, seriously? You put it up there. You got a 1 in 3 chance of knowing who it is, right? So come on. It's just a little too easy So he started to laugh. He goes, I never thought of that. And I think he's got a baby picture of George Teague as well. So maybe that's one more to throw in the mix. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's just, I mean, you will see, black people betting on harness racing.
Oh,
they
yeah.
do, but, I mean, they'll bet on anything. I mean, black people are big supporters of racing. You go through the second floor at Woodbine, and you'll see tons of black people with, different Caribbean backgrounds that are there cheering for their horses and whatever else. But, yeah, I don't know what it is with harness racing. It's just not there, but that doesn't bother me. It's just, like I said, it's just easier to pick me out.
Well, I mean, it's also nice that you are kind of the Jackie Robinson of your position, because I like to see myself as the Lenny Bruce of harness racing.
Nice.
But that's not really going to pay off much in the long run. I don't get a movie. I don't have a number that they retire for me. I just fade away into the ether.
Yeah, I hear you. I know how that feels. But you know what? Whatever. We're trendsetters, right? That's the way to look at it.
I speak for myself, Jason. I'll speak for myself. But so I keep getting lost because we have a couple minutes to post until the North America Cup. I guess I'll leave you on this note because we got to get into this race.
Okay.
This what North America Cup was this that you covered? What number?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean, what number is it? I'm like, oh, you put me on the spot. I think it's 34. This would have been 8 or 9 for me now.
Oh, okay.
You actually are putting this. I'm trying to remember how many I've covered because I've been back and forth so many times. At least 8 or 9. Yeah, 8 or 9 at least. It could be as high as 10.
Oh, okay. Because I was in a similar situation because I just went to my 7th Hambletonian. And
that's awesome.
And now being 18 and of that age where it's just like everything makes sense now. I think it does anyway. It doesn't. The first couple of times you do it and you go to cover it, it doesn't really hit you where you're at. And I'm curious if you had kind of a similar situation, even though you're much more weathered and much more of a veteran than I am, going into your, I think you said your 8th or 9th North America Cup?
You know what? It's one of those things where, regardless of how many, you've been to, right, you still just get up for it, right? It doesn't matter. It's like any athlete will tell you, whether it's a football player for the Super Bowl, a hockey player for the Stanley Cup, for the playoffs, whatever. Every year is a different experience, and every year is a different feeling to it, and it'll never get old for me. I mean, I love 2-year-olds personally, so Metro Pace is where it's at for me. But I mean, obviously for the sophomores in our country, it's North America Cup. But yeah, I've never been to a Hambo, so I'm jealous that you outnumbered me by plenty there. So I've only been by the Meadowlands once for like a cup of coffee. I was going actually to a football game. Back then it was called the Meadowlands. Now it's MetLife Stadium, where the Giants and the Jets play. But I just happened to, sort of glance through and get a chance to check it out just because I was right there. 3 facilities all within like steps of one another: the racetrack, football stadium, and the hockey arena, which is now the Prudential Center. I think it's called the Rock, or they keep changing the sponsor name, but where the Devils play anyway. So yeah, I got to get to a Hambo. And
yet, paying $3 for a coffee at the Meadowlands is still cheaper than whatever you'd pay at MetLife Stadium. Jason, I wish we could talk more. We have to talk more away from broadcasting because I feel a budding friendship here. I don't know if you feel the same.
You know what? I do as well, amigo. So, you know what? Anytime you want, you got my number, you can call me.
All right, Jason Portuondo, everybody. We got to roll into the North America Cup as it is now off and pacing, leaving away well from the center as they make their way to that first turn. Comes the 4, whose name I'm just pulling up now on the screen. Thanks again to Jason Portuondo for calling in. That's Captain Jepson taking the front. Captain Jepson and Jonathan Dunn taking the lead around that first turn. Parked out then Bronski Langer in second. Deeper on the track, Night Warriors moving up into third, and then 3 wide, I Like Blondes. Now up into third and pressing for the lead. First quarter up in 26 flat. Bronski Langer trying to clear the lead as they move onto the backstretch. 3 wide, I Like Blondes now moves 2 wide and moves towards the lead. Ronnie and Cole then's parked out 3 wide, pacing into second, and then caught in between them, Night Warrior third. Shuffled back to fifth, Captain Jepson V. Sixth, then Agent X. Seventh comes JMC Henry the First, followed by Sweet Peppers back to Lion's Image and the trailer Swift Run Raptor. Half up, 53 seconds, 27 flat for that second quarter, and Night Warrior is the new leader to the far turn. Ronnie and Cole sits the pocket. Outside, Captain Jepson V is now inching up to take the lead. On his back, then Agent X picks up cover, left uncovered, stalled a bit, a length off the lead, pacing in third. Ronnie and Cole's to the inside fourth. Back fifth, I Like Blondes. Sixth, Bronski Langer, soon to be boxed in as Swift Run Raptor tries to catch the cover of Agent X 3 lengths away as they pass three quarters. In front, Captain Jepson V in 1:20 and 4. Agent X is now moving up to attack on the outside. Night Warrior at the inside as they turn for home. Captain Jepson V soon to be braced by Agent X to the outside. Agent X and Merriman now sweep by to take the lead as they come on to the finish. Captain Jepson V second towards the center of the track. Lion's Image and Sweet Peppers. It's Agent X in front. Agent X to take the North America Cup from Captain Jepson V, Bronski Langer, and Sweet Peppers in 1:46 and 3. If only we saw an actual North America Cup going 1:46 and 3. I know some people would care. With that all said and done, I want to thank again Jason Portuondo. I'm probably butchering the name now, for joining us here on Off and Pacing Live. A great interview. One of the more fun interviews that we have fun interviews all the time. Let's be honest. That's one of my favorite parts of doing this broadcast. And then the second favorite has to be calling the races. And then there's nothing else after that because I don't do anything else on here. But I want to thank again Jason Portuondo. You can follow him on Twitter at jporty13. His handle is actually in the title of this broadcast. I have been Ray Catolo. Thank you for joining us for another edition of Off and Pacing Live. You don't know how much I appreciate you tuning in to listen to my voice, talk to other voices, and try and unearth whatever we call this thing that is a life in harness racing, because that's what it all comes down to anyway. And I hope you'll join me next time, whenever that time approaches. Oh, by the way, North American Harness Update. Fridays at 9 p.m. on SRN1. You'll catch me on there alongside my co-hosts Mike Prebozy and Rod Alms Jr. That's Friday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, because unlike the state of Arizona, we practice daylight savings. And that's at 148.ca/1, Fridays at 9 p.m. That's 2 days from now. Exactly. We'll be on the air at this point in 48 hours, and we hope, at least I do, you'll be there to listen. Until then, I have been Ray Catolo.